Hello, and welcome to the Eclipse Evolution podcast. I'm your host, Savannah Rose Johnson. I'll admit, for those who are maybe not tuning in via our video platforms, I'm fairly upset right now. Grief is hard, y'all. I don't know what to say. As some of you know, and some of you might find this episode kind of silly. But for me, I've always just grieved extra hard when it comes to like the animals that I have. Um, like of course when people pass away, that's devastating. But I don't know. There's something about I think with being an empath, um, like it just hits different when it's an animal of mine. Especially like one that I've had since they were like a little baby. Oh, because I mean that's my baby. And I'm just so sad because so my beloved pet frog Taddy, who I raised from a tadpole, um passed away yesterday, and I'm not in good shape about it, obviously. And even though he wasn't like a pet that I could like cuddle with or hold, like my dog and stuff, he had so much significance to me in my journey. And I'm just so heartbroken that I didn't get to have more time with him. Because he only just finished developing into a frog, about a couple months ago, if that. So I thought I had years with him. So I think I'm still kind of in shock about it. But long story short, he ended up um, developing this type of fungus that's really common for frogs to get, and it's kind of one of those things that like you can't tell that anything is wrong until it's kind of too late. I'm still really confused on like how it all happened because nothing was different in his environment, but that's just kind of from the research I was doing, able to gather that it's just kind of something that frogs are prone to. So we had a little funeral for him yesterday and buried him in our backyard, and with some rose quartz and tiger's eye and lapis lazuli and what was the tiger's eye rose, and then a little amethyst. So he's got good vibes all around him. But I think one of the things that has really been a part of this grieving process is 100%, like he was the cutest, most adorable little frog ever, but also just how he was such a huge symbol for me and my own transformation, just like depending on like the time that I got him, like the time of my life when I got him as a tadpole, and like the reasoning behind that, all the way to his growth and development. So Taddy, I got him as a tadpole back in January, right after I resigned from my job. I was going through a huge grief process with that. And so for me, it was kind of like a way of trying to heal, like having this critter to raise as a tadpole into a frog was very much like a project for me to focus on, and just kind of a way for me to take care of myself. But also it was like an inner child thing as well, where I haven't always wanted to raise tadpoles, ever since I was little, because we had them growing up around my grandparents' house. There was puddles full of tadpoles, and I never got to like raise them all the way. So this was very much like me fulfilling a childhood dream, by having this tadpole. And so I think just the timing of when I got him, he was very much like a something for me to focus on as I was grieving my job, and all the disenchantment that was coming with that. And I actually made a little list and just when it comes down to all of the different ways that he just all the lessons that he taught me in raising him. And the main thing that I wanted to mention was just how Daddy really taught me to enjoy the process of growth again, and how transformation is something that cannot be rushed and deserves to have patience. Because here I got this little tadpole, and I was just so excited to see him develop and grow and turn into a frog, and it took way longer than I thought it would. And I found myself just kind of fixating on, like, when's he gonna be a frog? When's he gonna be a frog? But then I had to kind of stop and pause and reflect and think, like, the whole reason why I got this little guy is because I wanted to experience having a tadpole. And here I am focusing on the frog, focusing on the end result, not being present with the process. So he really taught me so much about knowing and appreciating, like, the end result is there to look forward to, but also it's not the sole reason behind why we start this journey to begin with. And that was so, it was so on point with my own journey, because I was, after resigning from my leadership role, I had experienced so much grief with that. And then I ended up resigning fully from the company as well, which that kind of brought a second wave of grief. And so there was almost this kind of parallel process going on with Taddy developing into a frog and me starting over in my career and launching my independent LLC. That just felt very poetic almost, just with how they were so aligned, and just being able to spend time with Daddy. I feel so, I'm not gonna lie, I feel kind of embarrassed, like, to have had this deep of an attachment to a frog, but it's like, I don't know, frogs have always been this huge symbol for me, just as far as transformation goes. I know back when I was doing my ketamine treatments / training, frogs were often a theme that came up in those experiences. So I think I have like almost a spiritual connection to frogs in some ways. But yeah, it's like just being able to watch Taddy grow and just celebrate all of the little changes that would happen, whether it was just a little bit of growth on his tail or a little bit of growth with like starting to sprout his legs or whatever the case may be. There was just so much to celebrate in that process. And it really taught me about celebrating my own journey and like how just learning how to be vulnerable has been a win, and just learning how to become myself in a lot of ways and show up as myself and be seen. It sounds funny, but like I really credit that to this frog. And I have no doubt that, I'm a firm believer that, like, God, the universe sends us animals as messengers. And I really feel like Taddy was a huge messenger for me. Just with like all the lessons that he taught me. And just like how we don't have to go looking for answers, but that nature provides so much information just through its own just natural processes that it contains, like a butterfly transforming from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Like that process, like there's so many parallels with our own development. In this case, like a tadpole transforming into a frog, like that's something that contains so much just timeless wisdom and timeless meaning if we only stop to pay attention to it. And so I just feel like, oh, he really taught me a lot about being present and just enjoying the process and being patient with myself, as some things take a little time. Like grief takes time to process, like our whatever we're trying to create in our life, our business, whatever it is, that takes time to process, and move through that process. But it doesn't make it any less magical being in that process. And I just really appreciate how much he was able to help me see just an acceptance behind the process, but also how much joy can be contained while we're going through these things. Because, oh, gosh. And I've been like this for like the past 24 hours, just so you know. Like, I'm really, really broken. It's kind of caught me off guard, I'm not gonna lie, but again, I just think all the layers of meaning, they're all just like hitting me like a truck right now. But yeah, it's like, oh, I'm just so sad. I just don't think I realized like how much I like rely on him for joy. It's just such a huge loss in my heart right now. Because even like on these days when I'd still be feeling grief or still be feeling sadness, like I would just go watch him in his little aquarium, and he was just so cute all the time. He's so cute. Just, oh. And he just brought me so much joy every day. Just by being himself. Just by being so cute. Just literally not doing anything. Like, just floating in his pool or just, like, eating crickets. Like, you can ask my friends. Like, I would send them so many videos of, like, him just doing basic normal things, and it would just be the biggest deal to me just because I was so happy to see him level up. Just so happy to see him level up. And it was just a huge reminder, like, about my own leveling up that I'm going through right now. And I mean, I had a lot of sympathy for him too, because as he was going through these changes, like, his tail would grow and then his tail would shrink, and it's almost like something would grow and then condense in order to give those cells to other parts to grow. I don't know if that makes sense, but so his tail would start shrinking, but then his legs would start growing. And I remember when he was about to sprout his arms, it was like I could see them underneath his skin, like these little things that were growing. And it's like then one day they just were able to burst out of the skin, and they just kind of dangled there. And oh my gosh, it looked so painful. And just to think about rupturing like a limb through your flesh. And then of course it took a little bit of time for it to get strong and be usable. It's like he was so vulnerable in that process. And I mean, it looked painful. Like, of course, I don't know if it was for certain. I don't know how to communicate to frogs, but just witnessing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is freaking hard what he's having to go through. I'm over here thinking like it's gonna be super cute and like a simple process, but just seeing how challenging it was for him to like develop these body parts, not in the safety of an egg or like a womb, but just out in his water. I mean, that's gotta be scary. Like, oh my gosh. So just empathizing with him. It just looked so painful what he was having to go through. And again, like all the pain that I was experiencing during this first half of the year, just grieving a lot of things, not just my job, but grieving certain relationships with like family and whatnot. There would just be days where I just felt like paralyzed by sadness. Like I just could not do anything because I had all this heaviness of sadness, of grief that had been building up. And now that like things were really coming to a close, where things are really moving into a new chapter. Just being so sad, and I kind of feel like some of my sadness that I'm experiencing with Taddy is like that layered, complicated grief, because again, like, he represented so much for me. And it was just such a shock for him to get sick all of a sudden. I just really wasn't expecting it. I really thought that I was going to get to enjoy his presence for a lot longer. But and there's this expression that, like, grief is like having love that doesn't have anywhere to go, and that's certainly an expression that I resonate with, because I mean, for me to be this upset about a frog, again, it feels almost kind of silly, but again, it's like that's the truth. I mean, that's what he meant to me. He wasn't just a frog. Like, he wasn't insignificant in any way, is essentially what I'm saying. Like, there was so many layers behind this little creature. And he's really shown me too, like, kind of with his body part, like, development, how sometimes, like, even parts of ourself have to be, like, sacrificed, or parts of ourselves have to be lost in order for new things to grow. And that's kind of what I was meaning by, like, watching his tail shrink. And it's almost like his body was giving those parts of himself, like, to his legs in a way. That's something I really feel like I've been experiencing myself in this process, like, feeling like I'm shedding a lot of narratives that don't serve me, feeling like I'm shedding a lot of beliefs that don't serve me, insecurities that don't serve me, just behaviors, habits, patterns, whatever it is, like, identifying that they aren't helping me anymore, maybe even harming me, and that they don't really have a place in this new chapter of my life. And I have to kind of see those parts of myself and really get acquainted with them, bring them out of the darkness, and really see them, work through them, understand where they're coming from or why they're there, and then let them go. And that's not always as easy as it sounds, because sometimes those parts have been there because we needed them at some point, like they're protector parts, or like trying to protect us from pain, or they're just parts that have kept us from living as our full self. And like, that's especially kind of how I see insecurities of mine, is like, I feel like they're keeping me small and they're not allowing me to show up as, like, my true self in some ways. And even, like, shedding relationships and just kind of accepting them for what they are has been really, really challenging. And a lot of grief associated with that as well, because here you have, like, a relationship of some kind, whether it's family or friends or whatever, and thinking that it means so much to both of you. Maybe it does mean that much to you, but kind of realizing it maybe doesn't mean the same to that other person. And the grief that comes with that, especially because if you hold someone to a certain regard, sometimes you can ignore the mistreatment that they're giving you, or hope that it just passes because you're looking for that positive moment again. And really being able to see people for who they are, or what they choose to be, or the limits that they choose to put themselves in, or even just seeing that people don't prioritize you the way that you prioritize them. It all hurts, it all hurts. So I kind of feel like Teddy was this messenger for me to learn all of these things. And I'm just so grateful that I impulse bought this tadpole off the internet one day, because that's what it was. I just kind of got this idea in my head, and Well, I mean, I bought a Venus flytrap first because I really wanted one of those. And then I saw on the pamphlet that it came with, like the website that it comes through, I think it's like naturegifts.com. So just there's a lot of things on there. And I was like, wait, there's a whole website. So I explored their website and saw that they had like tadpoles and butterfly eggs and worm farms. I got the worm farm too, but so I was like, oh my god, they have tadpoles. So I bought a couple tadpoles. One of the tadpoles, Tina, she didn't make it very long. She wasn't in like the best health when I got her, um but then Taddy, I mean, he made it the whole way through and I got to really witness his transformation. I have a whole video montage of his transformation on my YouTube channel if you want to watch it. Because I documented everything about his growth. It was like, again, this project that I took on just because I wanted something to focus on. And I've always had like a huge love of nature and critters, so it was perfect. But I'm just so grateful for the gift that he was in my life and all these kind of passive lessons that he taught me just from existing. And it really helped me have this whole new appreciation for nature and being present with nature and how nature teaches us so much if we just kind of pay attention to it and are present with its process and its timeline rather than like our own. I even kind of coined this whole expression with some of my clients, even where I'm, if I even see them kind of focusing too much on an outcome, I'm like, don't focus on the frog, like, enjoy the tadpole process. So he's become iconic in so many ways. So it's just really funny how this like little critter has had this huge ripple effect. And I have no doubt will continue to do so, just the impact that he's made. That's why I wanted to create this podcast episode, just because I started this podcast like kind of as a similar project to raising a tadpole. Like I just needed something to do for myself and I needed something that I could have an output. I could release whatever it is that I'm processing or ideas that I'm exploring. So this podcast very much like kind of goes hand in hand with my frog that I had. So I have no doubt that if I hadn't gotten him, like that this wouldn't have come to be, because it was definitely a part of the ripple effect. So I'm just very grateful that I was able to just be blessed with him and all the joy that he brought me every day just by being his little goofy, cute, silly little self. He's just so funny. And I don't really know if there's anything else to share from here, but just I'm really sad. I'm gonna miss him like crazy. But his legacy lives on for sure. So I just wanted to kind of make this episode to honor him and kind of these notes that I was taking, kind of the lessons that I was able to gain. And I've been thinking about these lessons as I've been watching him grow up. I'm definitely going to turn this into an article as well, because, I mean, I think that's what we can do, like, in times of grief, whether it's someone really, really prominent in our life or something really prominent or a little tiny frog, whatever it is. If it moves you, if it teaches you something, like, that's a way to continue on that love that you have. And so that's what I'm doing right now with this. So just thank you for listening. For those of y'all who have been tuned into Tattie's growth and development on my Instagram or whatnot, like, thank you for all the support, and I'm so glad that he's able to bring so many people so much joy. He's certainly going to be missed, so, but he is certainly still loved. So with that, just thank you again for listening, And I hope you were able to understand what I'm saying as I'm crying. Like, I know that's hard sometimes. But just thank you for allowing me the time to release and share today. And if any of you are going through grief yourselves, just know, like, you're not alone. And whatever you're feeling is valid, even if it feels silly, even if you're maybe even embarrassed how much you're grieving about something. Just know that there's probably multiple layers to it, and that's okay. And that it all deserves to be honored and shared if you want to. So, if I can help anyone, if this resonates with you, if I can be of service to you, please feel free to reach out. And my heart is with you all. And I will talk with you all again soon. Thanks so much. Bye for now.